Which one is your most favorite iOS DAW, Jacob? I get that question a lot, and I never really like answering it because it turns out I don't have one favorite. I have multiple ones, and it all depends on what I need and what I want to do. You see, my music is strongly influenced by the environment I'm in and also by the tools that I use. Now, for context, when I say environment, I'm not necessarily talking about whether I'm sitting on the subway or if I'm in the forest or by the beach or in a cold and damp basement somewhere in central Stockholm. Those things have a big influence on my music, they really do. But in this case, I am talking about the production environment because what I do will actually change depending on which app I am actually working within. So let me introduce you to the apps that I do use on a regular basis. Cubasis by Steinberg, Gadget by Korg, BEATMAKER by Intua, and Nano Studio by Blip Interactive. Now, I have struggled a lot with recording this episode. I've restarted several times and I've deleted everything I've recorded several times over too. I almost ended up not doing it, and I actually had my girlfriend talk me into doing this again, and she was the one that told me, Jakob, maybe you should try to talk about this out of a musical perspective. You know, what it means to you and your music using these apps and why you want to use one over the other when doing something specific. And she's right.
So I take a step, moving forward, and I keep on walking, never looking back. I found a way. So I take a step, moving forward, and I keep on walking, never looking back. I found a way. I no longer wait.
You know, when it comes down to it, between these 4 music production apps, you can pretty much make anything you want. They all have some way of putting audio in there. They all have their own instruments, drum sounds, effects, mixers, you know, everything you need in order to be creative, to make your own music. And so why would I need 4 of them? Why would I choose one over the other? What is it that makes me constantly end up using Cubasis? You see, I might start a project inside BEATMAKER, but I'll end up finishing it in Cubasis. So let me give you an example here. Back in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, I published an album called My Mellow Album. And the music on that album is so completely different from everything else that I've ever made in my entire musical life, basically. I had a lot of fun making that album, but I've never been so nervous before publishing music as I was when I published that one, because of how different it was. Normally, you'd hear me do a lot of EDM music, but the music on my Mellow album, it is so far away from that camp. This is something more atmospheric, and it's heavily focusing on melodies. Well, the thing is that that album would not have existed if I didn't have access to Cubasis. And why is that? Well, this was something very different for me. And in order for me to make something that kind of is out of my comfort zone, I needed to have a platform to work from that felt very much like a safe place to be in. And that is Cubasis for me. Cubasis feels like home simply because I've been a Cubase user for many years. I'll admit that I haven't used Cubase for some time now, but that's simply because I'm not using laptop or desktop computers for making music with. I'm on iOS, and I've been on iOS for quite some time. And during that time, my best friend has been Cubasis. You see, what I needed the most when making my mellow album was basically an environment where I already knew the tools intimately. When making that album, the last thing I ever wanted was to sit in an app and just fight it, simply because I don't know it well enough. I can't have that, not when I'm trying to be creative. So I'm always ending up choosing the safer route home. Now, with all of that said, it might sound as if I've got too much invested into both Cubase and Cubasis in order to even change to something else, but the fact is that I wouldn't have invested so much time into learning these platforms, these apps, if I didn't like them. And the thing is, I love them. Everything about their interface just, clicks with me. Now, when it comes to the design of Cubasis, I would say that this is the only one out of all of these music apps I'm talking about here. This one is the only one that has been designed to work as a conventional DAW, a conventional digital audio workstation. And you've got that classical user interface with all the tracks laid out right in front of you, regardless if you're using audio tracks or MIDI tracks. The automation, you can find that right down there. It folds up. Same with the effects, same with the mixer. This one can open up audio unit extension plugins in full screen mode if you want that, if they support it, of course. And you can also load and use inter-app audio supported apps here too. It's got a fully fledged MIDI system, and so it really is like a conventional DAW, and that is what I like about it because I'm old school.
I've been trying to find you where black holes bends the light, where stars goes to die, the space with light in an endless photon wall.
Now, I cannot speak about Cubasis 3 without mentioning the fact that when it came out, it was littered with bugs, and that was not fun because I couldn't get it to work. Hence why you won't find any videos from me featuring Cubasis 3. Here's the thing, what I've been doing in the background is that I have been testing out projects that I've made in Cubasis 2 and sending over them to Cubasis 3. And so far, about 20 projects check out, but I still have another, 30 or 40 projects to test out before I can properly, say that, yeah, it's pretty good now. Because Steinberg have been putting out a massive bug fixes, really massive bug fixes, and they have fixed a lot. But I'm not certain that I've been able to find everything yet, okay? So that's why I just can't state that, yeah, Cubasis 3 is safe. I can't. That's why I'm still using Cubasis 2 alongside Cubasis 3. And I wish I could just go over to 3 because 3 looks better. It's more sleeker. I like the way you can resize the mixer. I like the bus system, the group system that they've introduced. Like everything is just better in Cubasis 3. I just like it better. But I'm not sure it's bug-free yet. Just need to get that out. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, Jacob, why in the world would you even consider using any other app? Well, for a reason that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and that was my music is influenced by the environment I'm in, and I'm not referring to a physical place, but the production environment. So in this case, it's the app itself. And so what happens when I switch from Cubasis to Korg Gadget? So, Korg Gadget, what is it to me? Well, let's start with some history. You see, when it comes to Korg products, I've always loved their electribe series. I'm not talking about the electribe 2s. I'm not too fond of them actually, but I was very fond of the electribe 1 series. So I've owned the Korg EM1, the ES1, the ER1, and I've also owned all of the Chaos products, all of them. The KP3, the KP1, the K oscillators. And there is this thing about Korg's products. There's something that they've seemed to have gotten down to a T, and it is the playability. The easy interaction, getting started quickly. There are so many groove boxes out there today, so many of them, so many types of machines and synthesizers with sequencers. None of them quite got it down to the ease of use as the Korg electribe series did. Now, when I use Korg Gadget, I get the same feeling I got when I was using the electribes and the K oscillators and even the Volcas. I mean, I would put them into that same camp. Fun, easy to use devices that are affordable. So that same feeling, that same Korg fun spirit is in Korg Gadget. And the thing just looks great. It just feels good being inside that environment. And I'll tell you right now, whenever I open up Korg Gadget, it's because I have this feeling of me wanting to make an EDM track of sorts. And everything within Korg Gadget just suits me really, really well because of how easy it is to modulate stuff in there and do it, in a rhythmical way, because of how you can snap everything to a grid. And I just love this app. Now, I do have to add that when you are choosing to work with Korg Gadget on iOS, because there is a desktop version and it differs from the iOS version, because with the desktop version that has to be purchased separately, it's not like you buy one and get both. With the desktop version, you get all of the gadgets available with the purchase price. Plus, those gadgets, they have, more plugin formats, so you can actually use them as VSTIs and AAX plugins. Yeah, you can load them into your most favorite DAWs. If you're using anything else, you can do that. On iOS, you are locked into Korg Gadget. It does not support loading its gadgets into anything else. There are no audio unit extensions. Plus, Korg Gadget itself does not support loading audio unit extensions into it, nor does it support inter-app audio extensions either. So you have to use whatever gadgets you've gotten your hands on, and that's something you have to accept, unless they change that. It's not like we aren't telling them that we want them to do this. We are telling them that we want them to do this. We'll just have to wait and see what they do, basically. Don't let that scare you off, though. Don't let the limited environment of Korg Gadget scare you off, because you'll end up having a lot of fun with it, especially if you're into EDM music.
Step back, this is my sound system. 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 Now I've told you once, and I'm not telling you again. So listen, step off. Keep your feet off my beat.
Now, if you want to know more about Korg Gadget, then I have a bunch of videos. I've made loads of them. I have videos in where I'm breaking down my production techniques that I've used to produce a wide range of different EDM genres. And I also do have reviews and demos of certain gadgets, and also some other tutorial techniques like sidechain pumping and stuff like that. You'll find all of those videos down in the description in a link. So go knock yourself out. Now, before we move on with the topic of this video, I need to do a shout out to NU-TRIX, the synth guy. And he does synth content and also iOS music content. So you should definitely go check this guy out. I'm sure that a lot of you would find content on his channel that you like. But there is this one video in particular I really want to highlight, and that is the interview that he did with Alex Matthew, the guy who created Glitch Breaks and Glitch Core, which is a new app. I love watching interviews with devs because I love, hearing about their thinking processes around the creations when they made their products. And the thing is, that video has a criminally low amount of views. I think it's a crime. It's a crime. It should be watched more. I put the link to that video down in the description and also in the card popping out in the upper right corner. So of course I do have NU-TRIX's channel link down in the description. You'll find it in my link collection down in the description. I always try to promote other sites and also other YouTubers doing iOS content. So yeah, go down there and poke around and you'll probably find something that you'll like. Okay, so when it comes to the last two music apps here on this list, namely Nano Studio 2 and BEATMAKER 3, it's not like I have a long time running history with them as I do with Korg's products or Steinberg's products. But I do have a long history, a very long history with samplers, and I do also have a long history with synthesizers in particular. And when it comes to synthesizers, the main synth inside Nano Studio is what won me over to the platform. But it didn't really start like that, because I actually have this one guy to thank for even discovering Nano Studio and how good the second version of it really is. So in this case with Nano Studio, it's not my own music or my own really needs in the beginning that made me discover and start using this app. It was actually through someone else's music. I am talking about iOS music producer JESPER Jones. He's such a sweet guy and, on top of that, a great music producer. Well, he uses Nano Studio only. And he has been nagging my head off for years, since when I first entered the iOS scene. This is the guy who actually introduced me to the iPad musician group. He was the one that kind of vetted me and got me into that group, and also told Linda Koenemun, who runs that group on Facebook, that I'm an okay dude. So that's why you see me in that group. It's because of JESPER Jones from the beginning. So when he came up here to Stockholm the first time, he pulled out his iPad and he started showing me Nano Studio. And one of the things that I noticed instantly was the way that the sequencer handled notes. Okay, so look at this. All of the note editing tools are placed at the edges of the piano roll, which means that I'm never putting my finger on the note itself, so I'm never covering it up. I can see clearly what I'm doing here while editing the velocity, the note length, and note position. Now, this might be a small thing, but for me it's big, because I have never ever liked using sequencers on the touchscreen, because I'm always covering up the note, the start of the note and the start of the line where I want to put the note. And I know it's a small thing and you can snap the grid and everything. I just find it a bit intrusive. It's really just kind of annoying to me. But when I use Nano Studio, I never get this feeling, because these lines are clearly telling me where I am in the sequencer. And that attention to detail told me something about the developer. So attention to small details like that, improving the user experience, is very, very big pluses in my book when developers do that. And when it comes to something like Obsidian Synth inside Nano Studio 2, well, Matt Borstel has put that same attention to detail into that synth, and not only into that synth, but also into the drum sampler app Slate inside here. I also have to point out that I really enjoy the overall sound of Obsidian Synth. Oh, it's great. I also have to say that the effects in here sound really good. I don't mean just in the synthesizer, I mean the effects, the insert effects. They all sound really great. And I like how the compressors work, especially when you're doing sidechain compression, which is very easy to set up in this app. There is one thing you need to consider though. Just as with Korg Gadget, Nano Studio 2 limits you to its system, to its environment. You cannot load external audio units or interrupt audio things. It doesn't support that. It's got the fully fledged MIDI system and everything, but this is basically just like Korg Gadget was in the beginning, pre the Zurich era, okay? It's a MIDI sequencer with instruments. And in this case, you only have two, but they're some of the most powerful instruments on the iOS platform. And Matt made sure that if you want to do sound design, you can do that. The only thing you don't have access to is audio tracks. That's the thing. But if you're not into that, you can't miss out on this one, especially not if you like doing sound design and making your own synth patches. You just can't go wrong with this one. Now, if you want to find out more about Obsidian Synth, then I have something really nice to offer you. It's a full-length, in-depth haQ attaQ docutorial. You can find the link to it down in the description and also popping out in the upper right corner. Right, so here I am, sitting here, staring at the last app, BEATMAKER 3. What does this thing mean for me? Why do I use it? Well, I do have some history here too, and it's related to hardware, but in this case, the software has made me want to jump to the hardware instead of the other way around. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm in my 40s now, I'm above my 40s, and I've been doing this music thing for 3 decades, about 30 years or more. And when it comes to digital music, it started pretty early too, you know, with the Commodore 64, with the Atari, later moving on to the Amiga, going from there to PC, up to whatever this era is now. And I've also had a lot of hardware, grooveboxes, samplers. And there is this one piece of hardware that I never was able to befriend, and it is the haQ MPC. I never liked the haQ MPC. MPC lovers, calm down. I'm not done yet. Just sit down, listen to the rest of this. In fact, the haQ MPC made me think that I would never ever like an MPC styled workflow. And then I met BEATMAKER 3. And this app made me want to go to a hardware unit, an MPC hardware unit. BEATMAKER 3 made me interested in MPC units. It completely flipped everything around on me, and I kind of finally understood the workflow, and I never thought it would be possible for me to change my mind on this, but BEATMAKER 3 did it. Okay, so what does this mean for me and my music exactly? Well, I've been able to adopt another type of workflow, something that differs from everything I've used before, and so that also affects my music, because switching out the workflow and the tools and the environment, it just makes me think about my music in a different way, and it also makes me try out stuff that normally I wouldn't do because I tend to fall back on old practices, and that's never a good thing because you'll very quickly stagnate in your creative output. So I can't tell you how grateful I am that BEATMAKER 3 exists. By the way, a lot of people seem to think that BEATMAKER 3 is dead simply because there hasn't been an update for some time. And about 4 or 5 days ago, I spoke to the developer, one of the developers working at Intua, and they're still working on it. They've been working on it since 12 years back. The first version of BEATMAKER was released back in 2008. Yeah, it's not the oldest here, because Cubase is really old and Cubasis is based off Cubase, but when it comes to apps, apps for iOS, BEATMAKER 3 is the oldest one. And I don't think they're gonna stop working on it anytime soon. At least that's what the developer told me. Now, there is one thing I really want to point out here, and that is that BEATMAKER 3 actually does have support for audio tracks. I do want to point out though that I think that when it comes to the editing tools for the audio tracks, well, they're a bit lacking and could probably be improved, and I'll be sure to send that feedback to the developers and hopefully they'll do something about it. I just thought it would be nice to tell you that this thing actually does have support for audio tracks. I'm almost done, but I do have one more thing I need to tell you, and that is that when you're working with BEATMAKER 3, you are not locked into its system, into its environment. You can load any audio unit extension synth you want, and you can load any types of samples that you might have or have made yourself or have purchased into this thing. You're not locked into anything. You have full freedom to do whatever you want. Now, instead of pointing you to my own BEATMAKER 3 videos, I'll just do this and point you to these YouTubers instead. They make BEATMAKER 3 content, and their content is really good. And if you want to find out more about working with BEATMAKER, I think these people are doing a better job than me at showing that. So go check them out. To wrap it all up, I'm gonna show you this. This is the first time I'm doing this. It's a comparison feature splash. Okay, so it's a comparison feature splash screen, so you can see side by side what these apps will support and not support. And yeah, I don't know if it's helpful. Maybe it is. Either way, what I would love for you to do is to let me and everyone else reading the comment section down below what you think about these apps. Maybe you don't like them at all. Maybe you like them all. Maybe you own them all. Maybe you only own one. Maybe you're thinking of buying one. So any kind of feedback around these apps would be helpful, not only to me, but also to my viewers, to you viewers, especially beginners out there trying to figure out which one would be right for them. So if you like this content and you want to support the work I do on this channel, then hitting that like would be really helpful, because YouTube cares about interaction, like comments and likes. Yeah. If you want to support me in any other way, you've got these links here on the side, like Patreon, PayPal. You can find my music on jakobhuck.com. The address is right there. As usual, I do wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it. Birch pollen birch pollen nollen birch pollen nollen birch pollen nollen birch nollen. It sounds like I'm saying nalle. Nalle is basically like teddy bear in Swedish.